Alicia, call me right away. That message from my lawyer made my heart tighten in my chest. Standing there in the silence of my home, I looked at the woman smiling in the wedding photo with my son and realized she was nothing more than a ghost, a fraud who had tricked us all. Hello to all my dear sisters. After that painful realization, I just stood there in my familiar kitchen, watching the warmth fade from my cup of tea. Why is it that we, after living so much life and caring for so many, have to face such a betrayal from the ones we trusted most? I am Alicia, and today I want to tell you about my journey to find peace and justice. Before we begin, how are you all doing today? How is the weather where you are? Is it as warm and golden as a fall day in North Carolina? Please hit that like button or leave a sweet hello in the comments so we can support one another. Now, let us go back to that afternoon when everything changed. I find myself standing in the tiny kitchen of this little apartment I just rented, my hands idly playing with the strings of my old apron. The sweet, warm smell of baking cornbread is filling the air, and for a second, it takes me right back to the house where I spent 37 years of my life. I only recently sold that place for $750,000, so I could give a big chunk of it to my son James and his wife Maya to start their own life. In this world of 2025, where they say the American dream costs over $5 million, I just wanted my boy to have a solid foundation. I look at their wedding photos sitting on the shelf and I cannot help but smile. Maya looks so pure in her white dress. She is a nurse, always so sweet, and checking on my high blood pressure every single day. I really thought at 68 years old, I was blessed to have a daughter-in-law I could truly lean on. Suddenly, the phone on the counter starts vibrating hard, breaking my peace. It is Robert, my husband's oldest friend and our family lawyer for years. His voice usually sounds so calm, but today he sounds desperate, telling me I need to listen closely and call him back the second I get this message. He warns me not to say a word to Maya. My heart starts hammering against my ribs and a cold chill runs straight down my spine. When Robert tells me that my signatures on the financial power of attorney papers look forged and that Maya's name does not even exist in the medical system, I feel the ground just fall away from under my feet. The teacup in my hand slips and shatters into a million pieces on the floor, just like the trust I had for that girl. I feel completely numb. I cannot even hear the television anymore, just a loud ringing in my ears as the painful truth starts to settle in. The person I loved is quietly stealing everything I worked my whole life for. I am just standing there, looking down at those broken pieces of ceramic, my head spinning with questions I cannot answer. Maya is right there in the living room, acting like nothing is wrong while she watches a show about home renovations on HGTV. What am I supposed to do? Do I walk in there and face her right now? Or do I stay quiet and find out more? The truth about my missing money and the fake identity of my perfect daughter-in-law is about to come out, and I do not know if I am ready for it. That night, sleep was a stranger to me. I just sat there in the dark, tucked into my old lazy boy chair, the one that knows all my secrets. My hands were trembling as I traced the numbers on the bank statements Robert sent over. The soft glow of the lamp made those figures look so cold, yet they hurt so much. I kept thinking back to the day I signed the papers to sell my home in North Carolina. That house held 37 years of my husband's laughter, and every single milestone of James growing up. $750,000. That was my entire life's work, my security for aging in place, so I would not be a burden to anyone. But Maya had such a sweet way of whispering about a forever home for all of us and the future of my grandbabies. I did not think twice before handing over $250,000 right then and there. I thought I was sowing seeds for our happiness. But in this world of 2025, where the cost of the American dream has become so out of reach, I see now that my kindness just made me a target for someone's greed. The more I sit here, the more I see the cracks I chose to ignore because of love. I remember all those times Maya took me shopping at Target and Kohl's. She was always so clever, making sure I was the one at the register paying for those expensive educational toys for the kids. When she told me about her $50,000 student loan, she cried and said the weight of it was keeping her up at night. As a mother who never wants her children to struggle, I opened my heart and my purse again. But looking at these papers now, that money never went to any bank to pay off a loan. It was moved into a strange account all the way in Phoenix. A pattern is staring me right in the face. Maya is only sweet and acting like a daughter when she needs me to sign a check. That deep sadness I felt earlier is turning into a slow, steady fire in my chest. I am not just a grieving widow who is going to sit back and take this anymore. A voice in my head is getting louder, telling me that enough is enough. I have to protect what is mine and find the truth for my son. I fold those papers up, and for the first time in hours, my hands are steady and sure. The ticking of the clock on the wall sounds like a reminder that I do not have time to waste. When the sun comes up tomorrow, I will not be looking at Maya through the eyes of a trusting mother-in-law anymore. I need a fresh start, and I need to be ready to take back my dignity. But first, I just need to breathe in some air that does not feel so heavy with lies. I wonder if I can really break free from the psychological trap she has set for me. This morning, I woke up to that beautiful golden Florida sun dancing across my floor. Instead of rushing out of bed to worry about what Maya needed or if James was hitting another financial wall, I just laid there for a minute. I enjoyed a silence I haven't felt in a long time. I went to my closet and pulled out a soft silk outfit from Chico's that I love so much. The kind of thing I usually hide away to save money for the kids. I slipped on my comfortable Skechers and stepped out onto the balcony, just taking in the smell of the salt air and the greenery. Even with the way prices are climbing in 2025, I decided I deserved a treat. I stopped at a little roadside cafe for a hot latte and just sat there with a book. Feeling that warmth from the mug in my hands and smelling the fresh roasted beans made my soul feel quiet again after all the storms I have been through. I left the cafe and walked over to Barnes & Noble to finally pick up a new Kindle Paperwhite. It was high time I looked after my own tired eyes instead of always spending every dime on educational toys for my grandbabies. Picking out a gift for myself felt strange, but it also felt like I was finally waking up. Then, I took a deep breath and called Brenda, my best friend from back in the day that I haven't spoken to in 2 whole years. Hearing her voice, so surprised and so warm, felt like a heavy stone was finally being lifted off my heart. We laughed about the old times and the afternoons we used to spend walking in the park. That connection gave me a sense of peace I didn't think I would ever find again. I realized I still have people who truly love me, and I can feel a little spark of hope for my own life starting to grow. The afternoon went by with a lightness I had forgotten was possible. I headed back home feeling ready for whatever comes next, but I knew the quiet wouldn't last. Maya is starting to notice that the well is running dry. My phone rang, and it wasn't my lawyer this time. It was my daughter-in-law, using that voice of hers that sounds like sugar but feels like ice. I have to wonder if I am strong enough to keep these boundaries I just built. Sisters, with everything we do for our families, when was the last time you bought yourself something beautiful? If the weather is nice where you are, tell me about it. Leave a comment saying, "Good morning," so we can all share in this feeling of being free together. I just stepped back inside my home when my phone started vibrating in my hand again. I looked down and saw Maya's face smiling back at me on the screen, labeled as Dear Maya in my contacts. For a second, a little wave of anxiety washed over me, but I took a long, deep breath and remembered everything my lawyer Robert told me. I answered it. Maya's voice came through as sweet as honey, asking where I had been because she and James were just so worried about me. She said she was scared I had forgotten to take my blood pressure medicine again. She always starts like that, using a little sprinkle of concern just to remind me of the forgetfulness she wants me to believe I have. I looked at myself in the hallway mirror and saw my face was calm even though my heart was knocking against my ribs. I kept my voice steady and short, telling her I was just fine and had only gone out to the bookstore. I asked her if there was something important on her mind. There was a little silence on the other end, and I could tell I had caught her off guard with how firm I sounded. Maya found her sweet, pleading tone again pretty fast. She started talking about how stressed James has been lately, saying work hasn't been going well, and how the cost of everything in 2025 is just going through the roof. She let out a long, tired sigh and told me their new house was having some expensive plumbing issues. She said she thought about having James ask me for help, but he was too proud because he wants to be independent. It was the same old story I had heard a dozen times. She plays the victim and uses James to pull at my heartstrings just to get to my purse. I stayed quiet, just listening to the sound of my own breathing. In the past, I would have asked for the bill and sent the money right over. But now, I could see the cold calculation hidden behind those pitiful words. I felt my hands gripping the edge of the table, not because I was scared, but because I was finally finding my footing. I gently cut her off. I told her I understood things were tight, but right now I have to look at my own budget to make sure I can take care of my health for the long haul. Maya went silent for a moment, and then her voice changed, getting a little sharp behind a fake little laugh. She told me it made her sad to hear me talk like that, and asked if I was really going to let my own grandbabies suffer. She mentioned she had seen some educational toys on Amazon that I usually buy for them and said she had already put them in her cart. She was using her last weapon, my love for those children, to try and make me feel guilty. I just gave a sad little smile to myself, realizing how much I had let her get away with this. I told her the children had plenty of toys and that James is the head of his house, so he needs to learn how to handle these extra costs himself. Then I told her I needed my rest and said goodbye. I hung up the phone before she could say another word. That nervous feeling I had at the start just evaporated, and this strange new confidence took its place. For the first time in years, I actually said no to a demand wrapped in a family hug. I looked down at my hands and they weren't shaking at all. The silence in the house didn't feel lonely anymore. It felt peaceful in a way I hadn't felt in forever. I know Maya isn't going to just stop here. She is going to change her ways, probably coming at me harder or more directly. But winning this little quiet battle gave me the strength to believe I can protect myself. I opened up my new Kindle and let myself slip into another world. But my mind stayed sharp, getting ready for whatever is coming next. I am not a helpless victim anymore. I am slowly taking back the wheel of my own life. The phone is quiet now, but it feels like the storm is only just beginning. Maya's silence after that call makes me feel more uneasy than relieved. She is not the kind of person to walk away when she sees her meal ticket slipping through her fingers. I know the next step won't just be a phone call. The truth about that fake identity Robert found is still sitting in my heart like a heavy stone. I have to wonder what she will do when she realizes I am not bending anymore. Is she going to walk right through my front door to face me? Sisters, have you ever found it hard to say no to your own family? Do you think I am being too hard on her? Let me know what you think by leaving a comment with the word steadfast, and tell me how you are feeling. I wish you all a day of peace. I was just sitting quietly in my living room, trying to find some peace in the pages on my new Kindle, when I heard that sound that made my blood run cold. It was the unmistakable rattle of a key turning in my front door lock. My heart squeezed tight in my chest because I hadn't invited a soul over, and I knew James was supposed to be at work. The door just swung wide open, and Maya walked right in. No knock, and not a single word of hello. She was still holding that spare key I had trusted her with the very day they moved in nearby. That sweet nurse smile she always wears for the world was completely gone, replaced by a face as cold as stone and eyes that were burning with a sharp, ugly calculation. She slammed her designer bag down on my sofa, and her high heels started drumming against my hardwood floor like a hammer, as if she was trying to claim every inch of my home as hers. The room that felt so peaceful just a minute ago suddenly became heavy and suffocating, filled with the scent of that expensive perfume I know for a fact I paid for. I felt my private space being ripped open, and while a little bit of fear started to rise up, it was quickly pushed aside by a feeling of being on high alert. She didn't even wait to get close before she started screaming, asking me what kind of game I thought I was playing. She shouted that James was losing his mind because I was refusing to help them, and she demanded to know if I had any idea how much pressure they were under. She started listing off repair costs for their house, insurance bills, and some investments she claimed were hanging by a thread. She marched right up to me and stood over me like she was a debt collector come to claim what was hers. She had the nerve to tell me I was just sitting here in luxury with hundreds of thousands of dollars in the bank, while I let my own son struggle. She actually called me selfish. Those lies felt like they were cutting right into my soul. She didn't ask how I was feeling or if my heart was handling the stress. All she saw when she looked at me were the numbers in an old widow's bank account, someone she thought she could just bully and manipulate until there was nothing left. I didn't stay seated for another second. I stood up as fast as I could, and even though my 68-year-old legs were shaking, I forced myself to stand tall and straight. I repeated that word selfish back to her, my voice trembling with a pure, hot anger. I asked her how she could ever dare use that word with me. I looked her right in her eyes and started counting out the truth. I told her I sold the home I had lived in for 37 years, a place filled with every memory of my late husband, just to give them $250,000. I reminded her that I paid for that fancy wedding she insisted on, and that I paid off student loans I now know were nothing but a bold-faced lie. I took a step toward her, feeling the power of the truth burning in my chest. I told her I had sacrificed my own safety and my own future just so they could have a good start in this hard world of 2025. I asked her if she really thought she could stand in my home and insult me just because I decided I was done being deceived. That was the moment Maya's mask didn't just crack. It fell away and shattered into pieces. She let out this nasty, hateful little laugh that was full of nothing but contempt. She called me a senile old woman, hissing my name like it was a dirty word. She told me I should stop dreaming if I thought I was going to keep that money. She said James would always listen to her and that he belonged to her now. She looked around my house and told me that sooner or later, all of this property was going to be theirs anyway. She swung her arms so wildly she nearly knocked over the vase. "That is the last thing I have from my husband." She asked me who would ever believe a woman my age, saying people would just think I was getting confused and starting to lose my mind over my finances. The greed in her eyes was like looking at a monster that had finally stopped pretending. She even had the audacity to threaten to put me in a nursing home if I didn't learn how to behave and keep signing those power of attorney papers she wanted. I found a voice inside me that was louder and stronger than I ever knew I had. I pointed straight to that door and I screamed for her to get out. My whole body was vibrating with rage, but I stood my ground and didn't blink. I told her to get out of my house right this second and to never come back with that key again, because I was going to change every single lock before the sun went down. Maya just stood there stunned for a second, probably because she never thought I had that kind of fight in me. She grabbed her bag, her face twisted into something so hateful it made her look like a stranger. Before she stepped out, she turned back and gave me a look of pure, unadulterated venom. She told me I would regret this, and that I was going to die all alone in this room because no one would want to look at my face. She told me to just wait and see who James would choose in the end. The sound of that door slamming was so violent, it made the pictures on my walls shake. I collapsed onto the sofa, my breath coming in short gasps and my heart feeling like it was going to burst. I was completely exhausted, but in the middle of all that pain and family wreckage, I felt a strange new strength rising up. My fight for my dignity had officially started. The door was closed, but Maya's cruel threats were still ringing in the silence of my home. I knew she wasn't the type to just walk away and give up. A woman who could fake her whole life and identity would surely have much dirtier tricks up her sleeve to get what she wanted. I looked at that spare key sitting on the table and realized my personal safety was in real danger now. I couldn't just sit here and pray that things would get better on their own. I needed a real plan and a system to protect myself and the legacy I worked my whole life to build. I had to figure out what my next move was going to be to stop the monster hiding behind that beautiful face. After Maya stormed out of my house, I didn't allow myself to crumble for even another minute because I knew my peace depended on my action. The first thing I did was pick up the phone and call Robert, the lawyer who has been my rock for years. Sitting in his office later that day, surrounded by those tall bookshelves and the comforting scent of old paper, I told him every single detail about Maya's threats and her behavior. Robert listened with a heavy look on his face, taking notes as I spoke. He explained that we needed to move fast to revoke every single power of attorney or legal document I had ever signed when I was still under her spell. With all these changes happening in 2025, especially with the talk of cutting Medicare and changes to Social Security, Robert warned me that letting someone like Maya keep control over my finances was a danger I couldn't afford. He started drafting new papers right then to make sure my rights were locked down tight. Having a professional stand in my corner made my heart feel lighter for the first time in days. I realized that no matter how clever she thought she was, the truth and the law were the strongest shields I had. Once I left Robert's office, I called a locksmith service that I knew I could trust. Within just 2 hours, they had every single lock in my home replaced, from the heavy front door to the back porch, and even the garage entrance. Holding that new ring of shiny keys in my hand felt like I was finally winning back the title to my own life. I knew Maya wouldn't be able to just waltz into my sanctuary anymore like a debt collector whenever she felt like it. But I didn't stop there. I hired a crew to install a new security system with one of those smart video doorbells all around the house. Now, I can just sit in my favorite chair and watch every movement outside on my Kindle Paperwhite. These gadgets aren't just for show. They gave me back the sense of safety that I had accidentally let slip away because I was too busy being a trusting mother. The very next morning, I spent my entire time at the bank, taking the most important step for my financial future. I requested to open a brand new account at a completely different bank and moved every penny I had left into it. After I told the bank manager about the strange transactions I had seen, they were more than happy to help me protect what was mine. We sat there and went through every notice and every bill Maya had tried to hide, just to mess with my credit and my reputation. I also made sure to cancel any link between my money and any credit cards James or Maya might be carrying around. Looking at that number, over $1.2 million sitting safely in that new system, I took a long, deep breath. This wasn't just about the cash. This was the legacy my husband and I worked our fingers to the bone for. It was the inheritance I had a responsibility to protect from anyone who thought they could just grab it out of greed. The next step was a lot harder for me emotionally, but it had to be done. I had to cut off all digital contact. With Robert's help, I changed every single password for my email, my social media, and those online payment apps. I finally hit the button to block Maya's number for good. When it came to James, it broke my heart into pieces, but I knew I had to limit how much we talked for a little while. I knew she had him under her thumb, especially since she convinced him to merge all their bank accounts together just so she could control the purse strings. Staying quiet right now isn't about hiding. It's about giving myself the space to stay sharp and build my evidence. I even had Robert send a formal letter stating that all legal communication had to go through his office from now on. My home finally feels quiet now, without those demanding texts or those fake phone calls that only made my blood pressure spike. As the sun went down that evening, I sat back in my living room, but I felt like a completely different woman. I didn't feel like a victim backed into a corner anymore. Taking those strategic steps over the last 48 hours gave me a powerful sense of control back. I looked at my security monitor and saw my North Carolina street looking peaceful under the streetlights. The pain of being betrayed by family is still there, heavy in my chest, but that old fear has been replaced by a sharp focus. I know Maya is going to realize very soon that her easy money has been cut off, and this new wall I built is going to make her absolutely furious. But I am ready for her. I looked through some old family photos and promised myself that I would never let anyone drag the Rose family name through the mud again. My defenses are up and they are strong. Now it is time for me to start digging even deeper to find the rest of the secrets she is hiding. My home is a fortress now, but I know the battle with Maya's lies is really just getting started. I also know I can't just stay locked up in here forever with nothing but my cameras for company. Right when I was wondering what I should do next, I heard a very soft knock at my front door. It wasn't that heavy, angry pounding that Maya always did. It was a gentle, almost shy little rhythm. It was a surprise visit from a neighbor I had lived next to for a while but never really opened up to. I wonder if this could be the friend I need to help me through this dark time. That morning, while I was quiet in my kitchen, a soft knock came from Clara, my neighbor who lives just across the street. She walked in with a warm plate of baked goods and a look in her eyes that told me she was worried. She told me she had accidentally overheard the loud voices at my house the other day and just wanted to make sure I was okay. That simple act of kindness made my throat tighten with emotion. Instead of hiding my pain like I usually do, I invited her in to sit down for a hot cup of tea so I could finally let out everything I had been holding inside. Clara held my hand tight and told me she had seen many seniors in our community facing these same struggles as the costs of living in 2025 keep rising and making us feel like a burden on our children. Feeling understood and not judged made my heart feel like it was finally being warmed up after so many cold, lonely days. It wasn't just Clara standing by me. Brenda, my dear old friend I had just reconnected with, gave me her full support too. Over the phone, Brenda promised she would always be in my corner and was even ready to stand as a witness to my sound mind and character if it ever came to that. She reminded me of our times at the church where women like us have always looked out for each other through all of life's ups and downs. Having support from Brenda and Clara made me realize I wasn't nearly as alone as Maya tried to make me believe. The fear that used to make me want to hide was turning into a strong faith in the goodness of the people around me. I could feel my spirit getting stronger, getting me ready for the big steps I knew I had to take next. When we finished talking, I walked Clara to the door and watched her as she walked back home under the changing autumn leaves here in North Carolina. A deep sense of relief washed over me because I knew I finally had a team of silent but strong allies behind me. Their encouragement was like medicine for my soul, helping me win back the dignity that Maya had been trying to strip away for so long. I went back inside, picked up my tablet, and started writing down my next moves with a lot more confidence. I wasn't just a weak widow anymore. I felt empowered by my community and by sisters who understood exactly what I was going through. I realized I wasn't walking this path by myself, and that connection is the one weapon a person like Maya will never be able to understand. That warmth from my friends gave me the courage to face a much harder task, cleaning up the mess Maya left behind. While I was tidying up the living room, where the air still felt heavy with her lies, my hand happened to brush against a secret drawer in my husband's old writing desk. There was a folder stuck deep in the back, covered in dust, but holding evidence I never expected to find. What was inside those papers was about to change everything, revealing a dark plan that had been set in motion long before Maya ever stepped foot into my family. I had to wonder just how much more the truth was going to hurt. Sisters, has a simple check-in from a neighbor ever helped you get through your worst day? Our connection is everything, especially during the storms of life. Please leave a comment with the word Allie and send a blessing to your friends down below. I spent the whole afternoon tidying up the leftover things in the living room, just trying to brush away the heavy energy of that awful fight from the day before. While I was wiping down the old oak writing desk that belonged to my late husband, I noticed the bottom drawer was stuck. I had to give it a good tug before it finally popped open, and a thin file folder that had been hidden deep in the gap behind it fell out. It looked like something Maya might have accidentally left behind while she was rushing to snoop through my papers earlier. As I picked up that folder, my heart started thumping so hard I could hear it echoing in my chest. I saw printed pages of identification templates and handwritten notes in blue ink staring back at me. A cold chill ran straight down my spine as I read the real name of the woman who had been calling me mother every single day. What I found in those pages was so much more than just a fake name. It was a whole plan, calculated and cold, long before James ever laid eyes on her. I sat there in total shock, looking at a printout of an online chat between Maya, or should I say Catherine Blackwood, and some stranger. It said, Target, Alicia Rose. Estimated assets, $1.2 million. James is just the gateway. The main goal is this old woman. A wave of pure disgust rose up in my throat. Every little bit of concern she showed me, every time she asked about my high blood pressure, it was all just a part of this sickening play to get her hands on the legacy my husband worked so hard to leave behind. I kept flipping through those pages and found a list of other potential victims this fraud ring was targeting. Maya wasn't working this alone. She was part of a professional criminal organization that made a business out of stealing millions from lonely seniors like me. The worst part was seeing new power of attorney documents already drafted and just waiting for me to slip up so she could trick me into signing them. They were even talking about staging accidents to get to the inheritance sooner. Realizing all of this made me shake, but it also brought a sense of absolute clarity. Any last hope I had about her being a good daughter-in-law just vanished, leaving nothing but the naked truth of the monster I had been living with. I immediately took out my phone and started taking careful pictures of every single page, making sure I didn't miss a thing. My hands were still trembling, but my mind felt like it was made of iron. I sent every one of those images to Robert through a secure app. I messaged him and told him that I had found our secret weapon. This was the proof we needed to not only protect what is mine, but to pull James out of this dangerous trap she set for him. All that tension I was feeling turned into a focus that nothing could break. I refused to be a quiet victim. I am going to be the one to bring this whole mess into the light of justice. The room even felt a little brighter once those dark secrets were finally out in the open. The truth about Maya is finally clear, and that folder in my hands is the key to getting justice. But looking back at those cruel plans makes my heart feel so heavy. I started thinking about my late husband and all the things he taught me about honor and keeping our family strong. After all this betrayal, I just need a place to lean on spiritually so I can keep fighting this battle. I stood up and picked up an old photo of him, deciding it was time to go back to the place where we used to share our simplest dreams. I have to believe that the memory of those who loved me will give me the strength to face this evil head-on. After I sent all that shocking evidence over to Robert, I felt completely drained, a kind of bone-deep weariness that seemed to soak into every part of me. I walked slowly over to the corner of the living room, where my husband's old oak writing desk sits, the same piece of furniture Maya tried to get me to sell, claiming she was just trying to clear out some space. I sat down and let my thin, tired hands brush over the scratches on the wood, feeling a warmth there as if Marcus were still sitting right beside me, flipping through the Sunday papers like he used to do. The room was so quiet that I could hear my own heart beating right along with the steady tick of the antique clock. In that moment, I didn't feel like a 68-year-old woman trapped in a web of lies. I was just a wife again, wrapped up in the love of the man who walked by my side for nearly 40 years. I closed my eyes and had a quiet, private talk with him in my spirit. I asked him what I should do, and in the silence, I could almost hear his deep, warm voice reminding me of the years we spent working our fingers to the bone to build our life here in North Carolina. He always taught me that the honor of the Rose family name was worth more than any pile of money we could ever save. The memories of our warm family dinners and the way he tried to teach James the value of being an honest man came back to me so clearly. Marcus didn't just leave me with numbers in a bank account. He left me a legacy of being strong and carrying myself with dignity. I felt his presence like a cool, gentle breeze, washing away the darkness and the disgust I felt from discovering Maya's cruel plans. That comfort helped me find a peace and a determination that nothing can shake now. I realize I am not just fighting for that $1.2 million. I am fighting to protect the love and the lifetime of hard work Marcus entrusted to me. I stood up and felt my shoulders straighten, feeling stronger than I have in a long time. The legacy of this family is not going to be dragged through the mud by someone like Catherine Blackwood. When I looked at our old wedding photo, my eyes weren't filled with tears anymore. Instead, they were bright with the truth and the strength of my roots. I am ready for whatever is coming next, even if the road ahead is full of more traps and cruel attacks aimed at me. The strength from my past has given me a spirit of iron, but I know the person I am up against is not going to go away quietly. When Maya realizes my legal and financial walls are closing in on her, she is going to strike back in a much more painful way. She is going to come straight for my mind and my sanity. One morning, the doorbell rang with a very serious sound, and when I opened it, it wasn't Maya standing there. It was a social worker holding a file, telling me they were there to perform a mental health check on me. I have to find a way to stay calm and show them the truth of this wicked plan right in front of the authorities. One Tuesday morning, while I was in the kitchen fixing myself some oatmeal and fresh fruit to keep my blood sugar steady like my doctor told me, a very serious ring came from my doorbell. I opened it to find a middle-aged woman with a stern face who introduced herself as an investigator from Adult Protective Services. She told me she had received an emergency report that I was showing signs of paranoia, getting confused about my money, and was neglecting my own health because of my mental state. My heart just about stopped when she said the report came from Maya Williams. It made me sick to my stomach to realize she had gone this far, using the state authorities to try and label me as a mental patient in my own home, just to strip away my legal right to make my own choices. I invited the social worker into my living room, trying my best to keep my hands from shaking, even though I felt like my private life was being torn open. I remembered all the times Maya had ignored what I had to say and tried to blame my age for her own mistakes, hiding bills and then calling me forgetful just to make me doubt myself. The worker started looking around my house, checking my fridge to see if I had food, and looking to see if the place was clean. I felt a deep sting in my pride. Here I am at 68 years old, after working hard my whole life to build something for my family, having to prove to a stranger that I can still take care of myself, all because of one person's greed. The woman asked me in a very professional voice if I knew anything about the changes coming to Medicare in 2025, or if I had noticed money disappearing from my accounts that I couldn't explain. I took a slow breath and answered her with every bit of clarity I had in my soul. I told her exactly how I had stayed on top of the new tax laws and insurance policies for seniors, and I listed every single transaction from my bank statements that Robert and I had gone over. I didn't get angry or shout. I just gave her the hard facts and the numbers. I could see the look in her eyes start to change from doubt to real surprise when she realized I was as sharp as a tack. Not at all the confused old woman Maya had described. Right then, Maya had the nerve to show up with a man in a white coat she claimed was a specialist she knew. She rushed into my house acting like she was just worried sick, grabbing my hand and telling the worker that I had been forgetting so much lately and that they needed this evaluation to make sure I was okay. The doctor tried to step toward me with his clipboard, but I took a firm step back and stood my ground. I could see the trap they were laying. A setup with a doctor who was probably in her pocket just to say I wasn't fit to handle my own affairs. I felt a fire of anger in my chest, but I forced myself to stay calm so I wouldn't give them anything to use against me. I looked Maya and that doctor right in the eye and told them in a loud, clear voice that I was refusing that evaluation. I said, if there was going to be any kind of mental health check, it would be done by an independent board appointed by the court with my own lawyer sitting right next to me. Maya just froze, and that fake smile of hers disappeared instantly when she realized I knew exactly what she was up to. I turned to the social worker and told her straight out that this wasn't about my health, but a cold-hearted attempt to steal my property. I handed her the copies of those shady power of attorney papers Maya had been trying to force me to sign. The room went completely silent, and all I could hear was Maya's heavy breathing as she realized her wicked plan was being dragged into the light. Then I pulled out my secret weapon, the proof of her real name, Catherine Blackwood, and the whole scam she was running against the Rose family. As the social worker looked over the evidence of the marriage fraud ring, her face went hard. She closed her folder and told us she had heard more than enough for her report, giving Maya a look that would have withered a vine. Maya started shaking, trying to find some lie to tell, but the words just got stuck in her throat. I stood there tall and strong, like Marcus always told me to be, knowing that the truth is the only medicine that can stop a manipulator. Her attack on my mind had failed, and now I am ready to take this whole fight to a courtroom. The social worker left Maya standing there in her own mess, but I know a cornered snake is the most dangerous kind. Now the fake lawsuits and the court summons are starting to pile up, turning my quiet home into a legal battlefield. Robert and I are getting every piece of evidence ready for the day we stand before a judge. I just pray James wakes up and sees who he is really married to before everything is gone. Sisters, have you ever had someone use kindness as a way to try and take control of your life? If the sun is shining where you are, tell me if you're feeling strong enough to stay sharp with me today. Leave a comment with the word clear, and let's keep our spirits high and our minds focused. Late afternoon in North Carolina, and that familiar sound of the doorbell rang through the house again. But it was not a social worker this time. It was a courier holding a thick envelope stamped with the seal of the local court. As I held those papers, I felt my breath hitch in my throat for just a moment, a wave of tension returning to my chest. Maya, or should I say Catherine, had officially filed her lawsuit, trying to take legal guardianship over me and control of everything I own. She claimed I was suffering from severe memory loss and could not care for my own finances anymore. I sat down in my favorite chair and slowly read through every single lie she had woven into that document. But that initial anxiety did not last long. It settled into a heavy, quiet stillness that filled the room. I realized right then that this was not just a family argument anymore. It was time for me to stand up in front of the law and protect my truth and my right to be my own person. A few days later, Robert called me into his office to tell me about a new move from Maya's legal team. They had sent over a settlement offer that was nothing short of an insult to my dignity. They said if I agreed to transfer 50% of my assets into a trust under James' name, they would drop the case and let me live out my years in peace. I knew full well that Maya would be the one pulling the strings behind that trust. Robert looked at me over his glasses, waiting to see if I would break. I just gave a bitter little smile, realizing they still thought I was just some scared old woman they could bully with numbers. I told Robert as plain as day that there would be no compromise with a lie. I am not just protecting my bank account. I am standing up for the honor Marcus left behind and for the future of my son. We spent the whole evening going over our secret weapon that I had found hidden away in that old desk. Robert flipped through the pages, showing Catherine's fake identity and the messages where she plotted to take what was mine, and I could see the confidence growing on his face. We have our statements ready from Clara and Brenda, who are going to stand up and tell the court exactly how sharp and steady I really am. In this 2025 economy, where so many of us older folks are being targeted and taken advantage of, I want my case to be a lesson for anyone who thinks we are easy prey. Every single legal detail, from the Medicare issues to the suspicious bank transfers she made, was organized and laid out perfectly by Robert. On this last night before we walk into that courtroom, I am sitting quietly by my window, watching the silver moonlight hit the garden. The air feels still, but it is a stillness that is full of a strange new power. I have my best outfit laid out, including the pearl necklace Marcus gave me for our 30th anniversary. I feel completely ready for tomorrow. That old fear is gone. replaced by a deep peace because I know I am walking the path of the truth. I am no longer that mother-in-law backed into a corner. I am a strong woman stepping out of the shadows of deceit and into the light of justice. I am taking a deep breath and feeling the comfort of my roots and a steady faith that the truth will set me free. Tomorrow, those courtroom doors are going to swing open, and every dark corner of Maya's fake life is going to be exposed. I know it is going to be a hard day, but with my evidence ready and my sister standing by me, I do not have a single regret. I have to wonder if justice will truly smile on a woman who has given so much for her family. And I wonder how James is going to feel when that final curtain is pulled back and the truth is all that's left standing. The sky over North Carolina was a deep blue that morning, but my heart felt like a storm was about to break. I walked into that courtroom wearing my finest outfit, with Marcus's pearl necklace giving me a little bit of his warmth. Maya sat right across from me, still playing the part of the sad daughter-in-law, her eyes all red as if she were the victim here. The air was so thick and heavy I could hardly breathe. When things got started, her lawyer stood up and started talking about my supposed memory loss, trying to convince the judge that I could not handle my $1.2 million estate and needed them to take over. I sat there with my hands gripped tight, feeling a fire in my chest that was not fear. It was pure anger at those bold-faced lies. Maya got up on the stand and started crying about how hard it was to take care of me, telling stories about how I forgot bills or got paranoid about money. She was such a good actress that some people in the room started looking at me with pity. But then it was Robert's turn. My old lawyer stood up with a calm that was almost scary. He did not even argue about my health right away. Instead, he asked the court to show the secret weapon I had found in that old desk. One by one, pages showed up on the big screen revealing her real name, Catherine Blackwood, along with her criminal record for marriage fraud in other states. The whole room started whispering, and Maya went pale as a sheet, her sweet mask finally cracking wide open. Robert did not stop there. He showed the bank statements proving that $50,000 went straight to a partner in Phoenix instead of paying off any student loans. Every piece of evidence showed she was not a nurse or a loving wife, but a professional predator who saw me as a payday. When Robert asked her about using her key to break into my house and threaten me, she started tripping over her own words and lying. James was sitting there in the front row, and I watched his face turn from shock to pure agony as he finally saw that the woman he loved was nothing but a ghost. That truth did not just save my money. It tore away the blindfold that had been over my son's eyes for far too long. Finally, the judge asked me to stand. I took a deep breath, straightened my back, and looked her right in the eye. My voice did not shake. It was clear and strong as I spoke. I did not talk much about the money. Instead, I talked about the honor of the Rose name and the 37 years I spent in the home I sold because I believed in my children's happiness. I told the court that I might be getting older, but I know a person's character when I see it. I said I was not just there to get my money back, but to win back my right to live with respect and freedom. I told her about the long nights of threats and how they tried to label me as senile just to control me. The room was so quiet, you could hear a pin drop as I finally found my voice again. The judge slammed her gavel down and called for absolute silence. She looked at Maya with a look of pure stone. She said Maya's actions were not just fraud, but a cruel attack on the safety and dignity of an elder. Then came the words I had been praying for. She denied the guardianship, gave me back full control over every cent I owned, and ordered Maya and her partners to face criminal charges for fraud. I heard Clara and Brenda let out a huge sigh of relief behind me. All that weight I had been carrying for months just evaporated. I sat back down and let the tears fall. But they were happy tears because justice had finally smiled on me. As it ended, the police led Maya away in handcuffs. James came over to me, looking like a man who had been through a war, his face wet with tears. He knelt down beside me and just kept saying how sorry he was. I rubbed his hair, my heart hurting for him, but also relieved that he was finally awake. This whole stormy journey finally came to an end at the feet of justice. Robert took my hand and told me how proud he was of a strong woman who refused to stay down. We walked out of that courthouse into the bright noon sun, and it felt like a whole new chapter was beginning. I am not the one being hunted anymore. I won the fight for Marcus's legacy and my own pride. I can finally breathe again. The storm is over, and while it left some wreckage behind, the sky is clearer than it has ever been. I look at James and my friends who stood by me, and I can feel peace coming back to my soul. But life is not just about winning a court case. It is about how we choose to live after the hurt is done. I have decided to make a big change, a real fresh start, so I can enjoy every single day I have left. I wonder what this new beginning will look like for me. And I have a message for every woman out there facing her own storm. 6 months have passed since that day in court, and I finally made the decision to sell that apartment where all those heavy memories of lies were still hanging around. I moved down to a beautiful sun-drenched little home in a senior community in Florida. Living through 2025, they call this the peak Set 65 wave, because so many of us are reaching this milestone, and it makes me feel like I am not walking this path alone, as I figure out what this part of my life is supposed to be. Every morning when I wake up, instead of that old familiar knot of fear about my bank account, I just go out and tend to my little garden and breathe in the air of real freedom. I have finally learned how to set my boundaries not just with the new deadbolts on my doors, but deep inside my own soul. James is starting over as a single man now, and he is finally learning how to be responsible for his own money. I am learning how to love my son with all my heart, without having to trade away my own safety to do it. To celebrate this new chapter, I finally took that cruise to Alaska that Marcus and I talked about for so many years. Standing there on the deck of that Holland America ship, feeling that crisp cold wind on my face, and looking out at those massive glaciers, I realized that the legacy I fought so hard to protect was not just about the dollars and cents. It was my ticket to my own life and my own dignity. My days now are peaceful spent reading on my Kindle or driving out to have a long lunch with Clara and Brenda. I am not some bank with no interest or a pillar of strength that everyone else can just lean on until I break. I am Alicia Rose, a woman who found the power to stand tall after the storm, and I am enjoying every single minute of this life I have reclaimed. To all my dear sisters out there listening, please hear me when I say you should never feel a single ounce of guilt for protecting your peace and the work of your lifetime. A mother's love and a wife's sacrifice are beautiful things, but they have to have a limit when they are met with greed and a lack of respect. Do not wait until you are backed into a corner to start building your defenses. These golden years are a precious gift meant for us to live with a clear mind and our heads held high. Remember that your worth is not measured by how much you give away, but by the dignity you keep for yourself. Stay sharp and love yourself enough to know exactly when to say that enough is enough so you can walk out into the light of your own freedom. Thank you for sharing this time with me. It means so much to have you here. If this story touched your heart, please subscribe and share it with a sister who needs to hear it. We are never alone when we stand together. Stay strong, keep your light shining, and stay blessed until next time.